All right, good day, everybody. Who's ever listening? Coming back at you once again with another video, another lesson. All praise to the Most High, for making it possible, and all praises to all the men and women. Well, not praises to them, but honor to all that do the work of the Lord. All right, now this lesson is going to be in reference to the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt with as the children of Israel. A lot of people sometimes like to say, or some think that this mixed multitude were Gentiles of other nations that came out with the children of Israel. At best, you can probably say that there might have been a mixture of children that were from the women of Israel and the men of Israel, because they might have, not because they might have, but we already know that Joseph had wives of other nations. And and as you read on in the scriptures, you might find one or two occasions where other individuals of Israelites had children from Egyptians. So at best, you might be able to say that there might have been a mixture at some point. But in reference to the mixed multitude that came out, that's not speaking about Gentiles of other nations. It's speaking about Israelites only. And like I said, it might have been maybe at least one occasion that you can probably pinpoint. But nevertheless, I'll go ahead and get into this lesson, and we'll be starting in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, and we'll be reading verse 37 and 38. And this is directly concerning the mixed multitude. All right, so let me see. I'll start at verse 30. Well, I'll start at 37. It says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses. Now, this is after. I'm sorry, I should have did a little intro. But this is after the children of Israel. Moses had already gone back and forth to Pharaoh and gave him the decree that the Lord had said in reference to letting his people go. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh didn't want to let him go. And we get down to this point where the Most High said that he's going to send an angel through at midnight to unalive the firstborn of all Pharaoh's children, all that are in Egypt, of all the people that are in Egypt. So at this point, it's already happened. And Pharaoh finally agreed to let them go. And what I want to show is that this mixed multitude is speaking about Israelites. And I use the verses and scriptures that's in the book of Exodus with a few various verses and scriptures from other books just to make the point, okay? So I'm going to start in verse 37. This is chapter 12, verse 37 in Exodus. And it says in verse 37, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside children. Now that's a key point that you're going to have to remember right there, where it says 600,000 journeyed on foot that were men beside children. It's only indicating men and children right there. And the 600,000 is the totality of the children of Israel. Okay, it's not 600,000 men. Okay, so I'll keep reading in verse 38. And it says in verse 38, it says, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. Okay, now it's just signifying that a mixed multitude went up, and the flocks and the herds, and much cattle. Now, we're going to go to Exodus chapter 10, verses 8 to 11. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up real quick. Now, this is what I want to show you. This verse, these verses that I'm going to read in chapter 10, between verses 8, 9, 10, and 11, are going to be parallel to Exodus 12, verse 38, where it makes reference to the mixed multitude. The only thing that the thing that you're gonna notice is that it's saying the same thing, but it's using different words to identify the people that Moses are asking to come out with them when it says mixed multitude. But it pretty much goes into the same exact thing, that verse 38 says. So I'm going to read here in chapter 10, Exodus chapter 10. We're going to start in verse 8. And this is, I'll start in verse 7. And this is where Moses first went to Pharaoh to ask to let the children of Israel go. Well, this was the last time, one of the last times. And we're going to see what Pharaoh says throughout this ordeal. And I'm going to show you in a couple of more spots where Pharaoh said what he said. This is going to give you the notion to understand why it says what it says in verse 12. I'm sorry, in chapter 12, verse 37 and verse 38, in reference to the mixed multitude. Because here, when Pharaoh, well, I'll read it first and then I'll kind of explain it. And I'm going to start in verse 7. Exodus chapter 10, verse 7, and we're going to 11. So this is verse 7. And Pharaoh's servant said unto him, now this is Pharaoh's servant talking to Pharaoh. How long shall this man be a snare unto us? He's talking about Moses. Let the man go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? So that his servants are saying to him, Pharaoh, hey man, you don't realize that Egypt is destroyed, messing around with Moses, and you keep holding on to his people, and you don't want to let them go. Okay, so now verse 8. And Moses and Aaron were brought, so now Pharaoh sent for them. So I'll start over in verse 8. And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh. And he said unto them, go, serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? And Moses said, we will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds, will we go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go. Now this is Pharaoh saying that he will, okay, I will let you go. And then this is verse 10. And then he says, what he said, when he said, I will let you go, he was meaning Moses. And then he said, and your little ones, look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go now, ye that are men, and serve the Lord. For that ye did desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. Now, notice what Pharaoh said. I'm going to go back to it in verse 9, but you have to pick up on it. And Pharaoh told them to go. He said, I'll start in 8, and I'll explain a little bit more in detail. He said in verse 8, and Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, go. Now Pharaoh's telling them, go, serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? This is what Pharaoh is saying. And Moses asked, he said, or he told him, he said, and Moses said, we will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds will we go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, this is Pharaoh speaking now, let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, meaning Moses, and your little ones, look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Now this is Pharaoh speaking still. He says, go now, ye that are men. He's saying the men can go. And then he says, and serve the Lord, for that ye did desire. That's what Moses asked for. And then it says, and they were driven out from before Pharaoh's presence. Okay, so now Pharaoh just said, he's basically just said the men and the little ones can go. Basically, the men and the children. Now, what was left out of this scenario between these paragraphs that I just read in verse 8, 9, and 10? Because he said, Pharaoh said, I will let you go and your little ones. That's in verse 10. And then when you I'm trying to find it here. And when you look at the beginning of verse 11, where he says, not so, go now, yet that ye that are men. So now he's saying the little ones and the men can go. This sounds just like what it says in chapter 12, verses 37 and verse 38. But the only thing that's missing is the mixed multitude. Because remember, now I'm going to go back to chapter 12, verse 37 and verse 38. It says, in verse 37, it says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men, beside children. Now, verse 37 is saying what it's saying, but then when you get to verse 38, it says, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. Now go back to Exodus chapter 10 and look at verse 9, where it says, Moses said, we will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters. Those are the mixed multitude. Right there. It's showing you in verse 9 who the mixed multitude is that Moses is asking for. But it's just that when you get to verse chapter 12, between 37 and 38, it says mixed multitude. But notice how because think about what I said earlier. Pharaoh said, you can take your little ones and the men. And when you read verse 37 in Exodus 12, it says those that left out on foot were men and children, besides men and children. And then it says, and the mixed multitude went out with them. So he's basically giving you the whole breakdown of it. And the reason that it had to give had to say mixed multitude to give the understanding that the mixed multitude went out is because Pharaoh was only allowing the men and the children to go the first time. When Moses had already asked for the young men and the young women, and he asked for all of his people to be able to go. And then in verse, hold on, let me find it real quick. If you go back to verse 9, it actually finishes up with the flocks and the herds and very much cattle. The same thing that is asking for is saying in verse 38 of chapter 12. So when you look at chapter 10 and verse 9, it says, and Moses said, we will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters. That's the mixed multitude right there. And then he says, with our flocks and with our herds, we will go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. Then it goes right into the cattle. The same thing that chapter 12 and verse 38 says. Only difference in verse 38, it says mixed multitude. And the reason that it stated mixed multitude, and it even had to give you an idea of what it's talking about, is because Moses kept pleading for all the children of Israel to come out. Pharaoh kept saying, no, you could take the men, you could take the goats, you could take the children. And then at one point he said, you can only take your cattle. So he kept kind of like negotiating with them. And so when it got around to all of them being free and let go, then it said the men 600,000 went out on foot that were men and children. And not only the men and children, but they're old. I'm going to go back into verse 9. It said we will go with it. It said more than just the men and women. The men and the children. it's saying, when it says the mixed multitude, he means the young with their old, and their sons and with their daughters. That's the mixed multitude that is speaking about. Now, let me give you a little bit more on that mixed multitude and show you why it says mixed multitude in verse 38. Let's go to Exodus 10, and we're going to read 22 to 26. Exodus chapter 10, 22 to 26. All right. Now, this is, hold on one second. It says, and Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven. Hold on one second. Let me make sure I got the right chapter here, Yeah, 22. Okay, chapter 10, verse 22. And Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven, and there was a thick cloud in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. But all the children of Israel had light in their dwelling. And Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, Go ye, serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be stayed. Let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our God. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind. For thereof must we take to serve the Lord our God, and we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. So here, Pharaoh is saying in verse 24, only let your flocks and your herds stay behind. See, so now he's saying you can take the little ones, you can go with the little ones, but you got to leave your flock behind. So that's why this is what I'm trying to show you. The reason why it said 600,000 on foot, besides men and children, and then it went into the mixed multitude also. Now it's including everybody all together, because here Pharaoh kept trying to negotiate, and he kept trying to get some of them to stay. No, you can take these people, or you can take the flocks, and the rest got to stay. So when it came down to them all getting out, it said not only did the men and children go, but a mixed multitude altogether. And it's just that simple. That means all the children of Israel. Okay? Now let me show you something else in reference to the children of Israel being the only ones that went out. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12 and verse 29. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay. Okay, we're going to start at, this is Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to start at verse 29, and I'm going to read down to verse 33. Now, I'm a little tired. I know I read slow anyway, so just bear with me. So verse 29. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night. I'm sorry, let me back up to verse 29 real quick. Now, notice it says all the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon. Now, when I read to you just a minute ago that there was light in the land of Israel when God sent that darkness, that shows you that the children of Israel are in different places than these other people that are under the rule of the Egyptians or the Pharaoh. They're in two separate places. When Moses made this negotiation or commanded Pharaoh to let his people go, he only made that negotiation with Pharaoh. He didn't do it for anybody else. He didn't do it for any of the captives or any of the other people that were in the dungeon. And Pharaoh wasn't going to let them go. If the children of Israel that served the God of heaven had to go through all this negotiation that they went through, and the people of Egypt had to go through all the plagues that the Lord sent upon them, just to let the children of Israel go, what makes you think that he let the other captives that was in his land go? The people that was in his dungeon. Nobody's speaking up for them. So there's no reason for them to be let free. He's only dealing with the children of Israel. So these other people that are captive to Pharaoh and are in the dungeons, these people didn't get let free. Okay? So now I'll read verse 29 again. This is chapter 12, verse 29. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not an house where there was not one dead. Now, listen to what that's saying. For there was not an house where there was not one dead. That means every house in Egypt, other than the children of Israel, had one that was not alive in that home. So now you think to yourself that if you was either one of those people in those dungeons, and you knew that God wrought through Moses and brought plagues upon the land of Egypt, and the firstborn of every one of them, passed away, what makes you think that these people would so gladly and cheerfully follow after Moses after they just lost their child or their firstborn? No, they weren't all up in arms and good and ready to go with Moses, because this wasn't a captivity. This wasn't war for Moses at this point. And they weren't taking any captives at this point. So the people didn't have to go out with them, at all, by no means. All right, so now I'll read verse 31. And he called for Moses. Now this is Pharaoh calling for Moses and Aaron again. In verse 31 it says, and he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel. He said ye and the children of Israel. He didn't say anybody else. And go, serve the Lord as ye have said. So he said the children of ye and the children of Israel. Nobody else had the authority to leave. Anybody else that was under his captivity or his rule, nobody was speaking on their behalf. Moses was only speaking on behalf of the children of Israel. Nobody else could just decide to just get up and walk out of the dungeons when they wanted to, just because the children of Israel were going free. Because if Pharaoh sent an army after the children of Israel, after they got free, what make you think that he wouldn't use his army to keep every one of his other captives in captivity at that point in time when the children of Israel went free, when the Most High wrought for them to cause them to go free? That didn't happen. Okay, it was only the children of Israel. Now I'll keep reading verse 32. It says here also, this is Pharaoh speaking. Also now he's letting them all go, and the flock. He says also, take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. So now you see, you have here the Egyptians, they being urgent upon the children of Israel, meaning they're trying to hurry them up. They're trying to hurry them up to make them leave. They're trying to, well, if you keep reading, it goes into all the stuff that the children of Israel took from the Egyptians, how they spoiled them, and they gave them gold and silver and copper and iron, and they gave them silk and all kind of fine stuff. That's what they were going to use to build the Ark of the Covenant for the Lord. So the children of Israel didn't even want the children of Egypt, the people of Egypt. They were urgent upon the people of Israel, and they were trying to hurry them up out of their land, because they didn't want them there anymore or any longer. Okay, so the Egyptians weren't trying to go out with the children of Israel. So that's just all there is to that. Okay, so I'm gonna move on and go to Exodus chapter 11, and we're gonna read verses 4 and 5. Okay, chapter 11, verse 4 and 5, and this is just more added proof that hold on, that the Lord, that it was only that everybody that was in the land of Egypt, include the Egyptians and all the other captives, the maid servants and all, they all lost a child or lost their firstborn. So nobody was so gun ho to leave Egypt with the children of Israel. So this is Exodus chapter 11. We're gonna start at verse 4, and it says, and Moses said, "Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts." Okay? So that's just letting you know that that's why the scripture said that there wasn't one house where they didn't have a death in that house. So all of these people that were in the land of Egypt that lost a child, nobody was in a hurry to go out with the children of Israel. All right. So now let's go to Numbers chapter 33, and we're gonna start at verse 3. Hold on one second. Let me get it up real quick. Well, let me pull the verse. Dang. Chapter 33, Numbers chapter 33. And we're going to start at verse 3. And it says here in verse 3, and they departed from Ramses. This is the children of Israel when they left the day after the Passover. And it says, and they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow, after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which the Lord had smitten among them, upon their gods. Also the Lord executed judgment. So now, here you see that the children of Israel went out in the sight of all the Egyptians, meaning that the children of Israel, when they began to take their journey out after they had done made it to this land of Ramses, not made it to the land of Ramses, but after they began to leave Ramses on the 15th day, meaning the day after the Passover, they saw the Egyptians. They were in the sight of the Egyptians. They saw them while they were doing memorial service, burying their dead. So this shows you that the Egyptians did not go out with the children of Israel. You know what I mean? Because they had memorial service, burial service, and whatever ceremonies that they had to do. And not only the Egyptians, because remember, there wasn't one house that there wasn't someone dead. So all those people, including the Egyptians, had to do burials and do whatever memorial service that they had to do in reference to burying the children or the firstborn. So none of those people went out with the children of Israel. It was only the Israelites. All right. So now let's go to let's just look at a couple more verses to kind of tie it up, and let's go to Genesis chapter 47 real quick, because I'll tell you why I wanted to go to this real quick. Give me 1 second. Let me get it. Genesis chapter 47. Verse 5 and 7. Now, because I mentioned earlier that the children of Israel dwelt in the land of Goshen. And in that land, they were the only ones there. And everybody else, they were set apart. from that land, from the Egyptians and all the other uh, servants of Pharaoh that were in the dungeons, and wherever they were at, the children of Israel were on their own. So, well, let me read it real quick. So this is Genesis chapter 47, verse 5 and 6. Verse 5 says, "And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any man of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle." So here you see that the children of Israel were not in the dungeons. They were not in the dungeons with the other captives. They were in their own land. So meaning, the reason I'm saying this is that when the children of Israel left and went out on their own, they left from their own place, their own land that they were in. So they went out them by themselves. Okay. And here's another thing. Because some might say, because I made mention earlier that you might find a few cases, or one at least, where there might have been an Israelite woman, or an Israelite might have had an affair with an Egyptian and had a child. And some would say, okay, the mixed multitude is within that, within mixed in with the children of Israel. Well, when you go to uh, Genesis chapter 43 and verse 32, is going to show you that the children, it was an abomination to the Egyptians to even have certain dealings with the children of Israel. Okay, chapter 43 and verse 32. And this was in a couple of occasions where it states that they were it was an abomination for the Egyptians to have certain dwellings, be in certain spaces with the children of Israel. So verse 32 says, "And they sat on for him." This is when with the children. This is when Joseph's brethren had came into Egypt, and they didn't know who he was, and so they all Joseph had his people to sit him down and bring him food and things of that nature, and they all sat down and ate. But I just want to show you the separation and how they were considered to be an abomination to the Egyptians. So I'll just read verse 32. It says, "And they sat on for him by himself, and for them by themselves, and for the Egyptians, which did eat with him by themselves, because the Egyptians might not eat bread with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination unto the Egyptians." And there's also a verse which I don't think I wrote it down, but there's another verse where it says that the children of Israel, because they dealt with cattle, that was an abomination to the Egyptians as well. So the point being is that when you talk about the children of Israel mixing in and mingling with the Egyptians and having children, and that's where the mixed multitude came from, that's not so either, because the Egyptians didn't deal with the children of Israel like that, because they were an abomination to them for the most part. And I want to bring out maybe one more verse here in Exodus chapter 1, just to show Exodus chapter 1, and we're going to start at verse 8. It's just verse 8 to 10. And this is when the children of Israel, after Joseph had passed away, and the patriarchs, or the forefathers of the children of Israel, meaning Judah, Benjamin, Levi, and all of them, they had all pretty much passed away, including Jacob. And at this point, even the Pharaoh that knew Joseph, that gave Joseph the position that he gave him as one of the rulers in Egypt. So you have now a new Pharaoh that came in. And once he realized that the children of Israel were growing in numbers, he made a statement. And this is the statement that he made. And I'll start at verse 8. So this is Exodus chapter 1, and I'll start at verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful. I'm sorry, let me start in verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. Verse 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now this is talking about the children of Israel, because they dealt with one another, because remember, they were set apart and in their own land in Goshen, even though they were in Egypt. In verse 8 it says, Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. All right, now stop right there. And so now that shows you right there that the mixing and mingling of the Israelites with the Egyptians wasn't so. So that's not where the mixed multitude came from either. Because if that was so, then this king would have seen the opportunity for allegiance between him and the Israelites. If there were Egyptians that had a mass multitude of children by and with the Israelites, then he would not have said what he said, that they are more and mightier than we. There would have been an allegiance there, and they would have been on the same team for the most part and working together, because they would have had, children amongst between each other. So that's not the case. So I hope that's understandable to you, and that's pretty much all I have on it as far as that go. And well, one other thing, because a lot of people, I've heard how some would say, well, you know what? Maybe I'll deal with that another time. But nevertheless, that's pretty much all I have on it. So Lord willing, that be of some understanding to you, and whoever sat here to it and hear it. I hope it bless your ears. All right. So that's pretty much it. All right. Thank you, and bye.